Hey all, Devin Sizemore with Gratis Gives and Gratis Payments. Excited to be here with you guys today and to talk about, are you running your business or is your business running you? And anyone who's spent any time with me knows that I love business. If we have coffee or have a drink, we're probably going to talk business in some way, shape, or form because that's my passion and that's what I love. Hence today's topic, right? Let's talk about business. Who we are, it's weird with the background I have, maybe why I'm at Gratis. So I like to put this in here. We are in the payment processing industry, but what I love about Gratis is, we do good with what we do. So if we can save businesses money, we are impacting the community through those savings and supporting area nonprofits. And I think we align well with a lot of the associations in town in that we're here to make an impact in the community, which I know Dave is a huge mission for NCET as well. So that's kind of who we are and what I do day to day. So let's jump into the meat. If everyone can take a second, if you own your own business, you can ask the question. If you work in a position and maybe you're higher up, ask the question when you started. So why did you create your business, or why did you start in the position you're in? What was that original thought? What was the motive for why you started? Was it impacting change? Was it money? Was it freedom? What was the driver in that? Give everyone a second to think about that. Have you kind of thought back to that beginning, right? Why did you start that position? Why did you start that business? What was the driving factor? And that answer is different for everybody, and there might be multiple pieces to it. So I just challenge you to kind of think about that. Dave, why did you start your journey? Kirk, why did you start your journey? Janet, why did you start the career you're in? Think about that original thought of why you started, because I want to make sure that we have that in mind as we look at where we're living today and where we're going, and that we haven't got disconnected with where we started. Next, the fun question, right? Can you take a vacation and not have to work? Can you grow your business without being there? Can you put out fires in the business without being the one with the bucket, right? So even if you're in a management position, same question, right? Can you actually check out and enjoy vacation, or are you always checking in, right? The blessing and the curse of these devices, right, is that we have them all the time. And if you're traveling, it's pretty easy to get access. So my question for you is, can you truly check out? Can you truly get away from your business or your position? Or is there something there that's always pulling you back or forcing you to participate and have to be there? That's part of what we want to talk about today, is how do we get you to be able to go on vacation and enjoy it? I know quite a few of you on here like to travel. I've seen your social posts, right? So let's do that, but let's enjoy that, right? Let's not be bogged down with the workload while we're there. Another kind of way to ask the question is, do you truly have a business, or have you created your own job? Not all businesses are created to be hands-off businesses. Some are lifestyle businesses, which is great because maybe you are controlling your hours, your time, and you have some more flexibility. Again, as a manager, it's where's your freedom and control there? But have you actually created a business, or have you just created your own job? A lot of the times in conversations, that's where business owners get bogged down, is that idea of entrepreneurship. And then it hits you and you realize, man, there's a lot to this. And maybe there's hats I'm wearing that I shouldn't be. So another good question to ask yourself. And then my favorite conversation I like to ask people is, are you your best employee, right? If we look at your company or your department, are you the best employee? And it's interesting because a lot of us want to say yes, right? We want to be the best employee. But actually today I want to challenge that, right? I want to challenge you to surround yourself with people who are way more qualified than you to move the ball forward. And the better we get at doing that, you may not be the best employee, you may be the best leader, right? And you might gain some freedom in the process. So something to think about there. So let's talk team, right? The last slide just kind of showed us, right? If it's a one-man show and everything's on us and the buck stops with us and there's no other support, we're probably not going to create that level of freedom where we can truly run the business and the business is not dictating how we live. So I think team is where you have to start. The right team makes a difference. So here's just recommendations. First thing, you have to hire people who are better at what you're hiring them to do than you are, right? If you're hiring someone for sales, hire the best salesperson who has the best experience. If you're hiring someone for paperwork and admin, hire someone who thrives and loves that. And if that's not your skill set, hire someone who's exponentially better than you at it, right? Make sure that when you're making those hires, we're really digging into what would the better version of me in this position look like? And how do I find, recruit, and retain that person? Next, we have to create ownership in our positions, critical. None of us like being micromanaged, so don't be that person, right? We all want to say, like, I'll just take it back, I'll do it myself, but that's not going to create that freedom you're looking for where you're actually running the business, right? You have to create ownership in the people that you're hiring and allow them the flexibility to make mistakes, to move the ball forward. Frequent and clear communication, have to have this. You have to, whether it's daily stand-ups, especially if you're going to go virtual, if we're in a work from home environment, right, we have to have daily check-ins and communication with our team to make sure that dialogue is back and forth. It's very transparent, it's very clear, and we understand what's happening in the company, right? If you're in a physical office environment, that happens just through osmosis because we can hear conversations and see what's going on. Next, you have to have clear KPIs. This is somewhere where we spend a lot of time with clients I've worked with is if you don't have KPIs, right, you don't have key metrics to benchmark employees' success, conversations can get emotional when in fact they shouldn't be, right? They should be factual. It should be based on performance. It should be based on key metrics that everybody understands where we're getting them from. They understand how to impact those metrics, and that's our conversation. We want to remove emotion so that we can have clear conversation and clear guidelines when we're having those conversations. Next, allow your team to innovate. And matter of fact, push them to innovate, right? You have to be willing to have hard and challenging dialogue. Bring in strategists. They're really, really good business coaches in this town. Bring a couple of them in and have dialogue. Go through some of the workshops that are in town. Get that experience where your team is thinking creative and they're a little bit outside of their day-to-day. And then last but not least, right, you have to let your team make mistakes, right? We all want to protect the customer. We all want to protect our brand and our reputation. But the only way they're going to learn is to make a mistake, because that's when you're truly going to understand the impact that that action had, right? Why did that mistake impact the client, impact the company? And we can have good dialogue on it. So I think team is critical. It's the most important part of the whole conversation. So just want to kind of share some of those bullet points with you guys on what I think is valuable and some ideas for you. Next, let's talk about the ABC Player tool. This is a tool you should use in your business every 90 days. It's something that you have to have top of mind and you have to have dialogue on. So first, let's understand ABC just so we can have uniform conversation, right? An A player is that person that if you go on vacation and come back, they've probably made the business better than it was when you left, right? They're the person who's going to move the ball forward. They're going to make decisions that are progressive. They're really that one that's always there and always pushing. The B player is the status quo, right? That is the person who's going to clock in, clock out, get the work done, not make a lot of noise, really productive, and they're the cog in the wheel we all need. We need B players to just chug, right? And then C players. C players are those ones that when you go on vacation and you get back from vacation, right? They followed you out the door. They got back 5 minutes before you. And the key is they're going to tell you how productive they were when you were gone. Right? They're not going to show, they're just going to tell you, here's all the stuff I did while you were gone, when in reality, they checked out when you checked out and they made it back just in time. That's the ABC players as far as the definitions. So my recommendation is, right, you're going to go through your whole org chart, right? So if it's your business, if you have a team, if you have outsourcers, if you have a department, right, put your team down and think about it. You know, how do they show up? How are they participating? Are they A, B, or C players? With that, our goal is always, we want to have A and B players, right? We want our whole team to be A and B players. The question that always comes up with this after is, what about the C players, right? The first thing you have to understand is if you have C players and you let them be C players and stay on the team as C players, they're going to drag down your A and B players and they're going to drag down the company. Sometimes I'll use the bucket analogy, right? Where you're filling the bucket up with water and a C player is like having a hole in the very bottom of the bucket. B player, maybe a hole in the side of the bucket, and A player, hole towards the top, right? Stuff's still going to get out. You still have to manage and guide, but it's not like that C player who's put a hole in the bottom of the bucket. Now, you can move a C player into a B player if, and there's only one if they're in the wrong position, but they have great core traits. So if their core traits, how they show up, their professionalism, their honesty, their integrity, the core traits of them as a person and as an employee align with the company's core traits. If that's a true statement, we can then have dialogue with that team member and figure out where's the best seat on the bus for them. Maybe I put them in a seat that's making them dysfunctional because they're doing stuff that's not in their lane or not in their wheelhouse. So let's keep them because their core traits are great, their culture is strong, and let's make sure we put them in a better seat. Now, if the contrary is there, right, this is where the emotional people, the ones that we like to love our team, that's great. But at some point we have to let go if that person is a C player and their core traits don't align, right? So if you go through your company and you know your core traits are going above and beyond and getting stuff done and whatever that may be, happiness, fun, humor, there's so many words that could be core traits. If that person just is the weird one out and they're the C player, you got to get rid of them. You have to. You can't negotiate that any longer. You've got to move them out. And when you move them out, you will 100% increase your return on investment, right? Because your A and B players are then going to perform better. You may actually get more efficient, right? Because maybe you put some workload on other people's plates and force processes to refine. So that's the big takeaway here, right? Don't let those C players drag your company down. Next, if we have the team dialed in, right? So if we've done ABC players, we understand how to nurture those people and allow them to create ownership. We have to have a clear vision and communicate that vision. You may have an awesome team that has no clue where they're going. If that's the case, then it's going to be a 9 to 5 clock in, clock out, right? And they have no idea how to help you move the ball forward. So vision matters. I think this is critical to the conversation if we're talking about running your business versus running you. First, you have to have clear goals and the KPIs again, right? You have to be able to attach the company goals to KPIs that are position specific so we can track, benchmark, and move the ball forward. Next, you have to have them written down, right? I probably sound like a robot at this point, right? We've all heard it, right? A goal not written down, right? It's not a goal. You got to write it down, and you need to have a roadmap of success for your team. Here's where we're going. Here's our expectations of how we're going to get there, and you have to communicate that. Next, you have to have dialogue with your team and make sure they understand the goals. Are they interpreting what you've told them and where we're going correctly, or is there a disconnect? And if there is, let's leverage those KPIs. Let's leverage that ownership piece so they understand their role in that. And then the final piece, which will go into the next tool, is once you've created that plan and those goals, and maybe those goals are very, very short term because maybe you're in a hyper growth state or an emergency state. Maybe you have some longevity to them, 3-5 years. Next, I want you to figure out, how do we break your business, right? This is an activity you should do, again, every 90 days so that you're breaking your business without actually breaking your business, right? Let's experience a broken company and let's do some forecasting to figure out what's going to break before we have to go through the experience of it breaking, right? Then we can plan ahead and have some good plans. So next, you got to break the business. So first question for you guys, again, if it's department-based or management-based, right, you can do this for your department as far as scale goes. So first, can you visualize your business at 2 times the volume or the revenue? 2 times, just double. Most people I work with, no problem, right? You can kind of think through, what's it look like at 2 times? What's it feel like? You might be able to have some clarity to that, right? Next, can you visualize 3 times, right? Could you visualize 1,800 members, Dave, right? If you guys are in departments, can you visualize 3 times the revenue, 3 times the headcount, 3 times whatever that means as it relates to you and your role? Can you visualize that? 3 times gets iffy. It's about 50-50. People can actually kind of see what 3 times looks like. And then I like to put 10 times, right? What if we just 10x? We have 6,000 members in NCET, right? I struggle visualizing what that looks like. So if you take your department, your team, or your company and you 10x it, it is really, really likely that should get a little shaky. And if it's not, you must be in hyper growth or a very, very early stage of your business, right? Do you have 10 times the clients, 10 times the whatever, right? At the 10 times point, I want you to work your way back until we find some clarity, right? So is it 5 times, 4 times? Where's that point where you can see it, but it is fuzzy? And that's where, when we talk about the future state in the next exercise, that's where I want you to visualize your future state, is that fuzzy point where it's not really clear and you're going to have to ask some hard questions because it's not the norm and comfort of where we're at today, right? It's going to force it to break. With that, now we can apply the tool to it, right? So this tool, it can be called the honesty curve. It can be just called the honesty test. There we go. And so let me explain how it works, and then you guys can go through this yourself. So first, you're going to have your two states of mind. First is current state, right? Where are you living today? What is today's very real reality, right? It's snowing, COVID's still going on, right? Where's today? And then that future state, when I say that, I want you to think to that fuzzy point where your department, your company, whatever we're benchmarking is now fuzzy, not clear, and you don't understand where we're going. So the things I want you to rate: first, product and service, right? And I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions on future slides in all these categories, but these are the big subjects. Product and service. If you just look at it today, is it a 1 where it's broken, or is it a 10 where it's perfect, or is it somewhere in between, right? Are you happy? Is your product and service still resonating in the market, right? Product and service. Next, pipeline and sales, right? What are we doing as far as sales are driven? Are we happy with it? Could we be doing more? What's that ratio? Is it broken? Give yourself a rating. People, right? If you do the ABC player test and you have a bunch of C players, we're probably going to be leaning below 5, right? If we do the ABC player test, we have a lot of A and B players, probably above 5, right? But, and what you'll see this on the people slide, there's a lot of other variables to that as far as capacity and time management that might impact it. Next, systems and processes, right? If you look at from start to finish, cradle to grave with the client, right? Where are the processes broken? Which ones are great? Which ones need help? Vendors and software, you have to pay attention to. This is one of those areas where people like to set it and forget it. If you read the RGJ article I put out, this was a huge part of it. You have to pay attention to those relationships, because when you made the purchase decision, it may not be the same reasoning as you're living in today. Finance is critical, right? We can't run a business or a department if we don't understand the money. So you have to rate where your finances are at. Again, I'll give you some questions on that. And then physical. It's really important that we look at the physical presence. Have you moved from work from home? Maybe you need to get rid of the office. How do you sublet, right? What's that look like? Or maybe you do need to expand space because you have physical team. So I want you guys to, every 90 days, go through this activity, right? Rate all of these subjects 1 to 10 in the current state, and then really take a second to think to that fuzzy point and rate it 1 to 10. So if we scale to 5,000 members or 10 times my clients, which of these pipelines change? Because people might be great today, and at 3, 4, 5x, people might be a disaster, right? You know that there's going to be challenges in recruiting. So you got to think about current state, future state. If you have a team that you manage and or business partners or a board, you can have them go through this exercise themselves and create a rating. And you could just do current state, right? Let's just take a current state. Everyone look at the current state, look at all these subjects and tell me where you're at. Have everyone do it separately. You come together in the conversation, and now you have a number where you can drive conversation. If everybody aligns on why it's there, you can then ask the question why. Go around the room. Hey, why do you think it's a 6? Why do you think it's an 8? Why do you think it's a 2, right? Because you know the controller, when it comes to finance, is going to have a totally different view of finance than the rest of the team. And it's nice to bridge that gap in conversation to make sure we're all on the same page for where we're actually living in these different pillars of the business. So now I'm going to run through those with just questions. These are just ideas for you. When Dave sends the slides out, these are things you could think about in each one of these pillars that I think are relevant. It may help you get a rating, right, between 1 and 10. So product and service, is your product relevant? This is something we saw rapidly evolve as COVID first hit, right? You had to create relevancy to keep top of mind, and or you had to adjust your business, right? If you're a restaurant, bar, how you deliver product or service. Have you seen a change in pricing, right? If you're in the construction space, this is a huge topic, right? Steel is going up, construction goes up, labor goes up, everything else goes up. So have you seen pricing impacts that are going to change your product or service? Do you need to expand your product offering? Have you found that there's some opportunity that we should take advantage of? And then kind of another talking point, trends, right? You got to pay attention to trends. What's trending in your industry, your market? Are you seeing things that are going to impact your product or service? Positive, negative, create opportunity? What's that look like? How do we go more virtual? How do we not go more virtual? These are the questions you should be asking in the product and service space. And as you're asking those questions, it'll help you get an understanding for where you're at today and maybe where there's opportunity to go and kind of reset some of your goals. Next, pipeline and sales. Do you have visibility to your sales process and stages? Do you truly understand the customer experience from very first touch, right? Whatever that marketing may look like, all the way through the buying process, whether that's them coming into a physical retail store and making a purchase, or maybe that's a service-based business where there's a lot more touches in the cycle because there's proposals and quotes and contracts. Do you understand the cost of customer acquisition? Do you understand what it takes and financially for that customer to become a customer, right? Have we tracked the numbers from marketing? Have we tracked the employee cost for engagement of getting them onboarded? Have we really dug into that so we understand, are we spending more money and time to get a customer than the customer is actually worth? And if that's the case, we probably should dig into that. Otherwise, we end up with a high revenue business that never makes us money. And if we're not making money, I have no clue how you're going to go on vacation, right? So we have to make sure we understand that piece. How are your sales trending year over year, month over month, right? How did COVID impact it? How's the snow impact it? How do seasons impact it? How do trends impact it, right? So understand that. And then this is kind of that tie-in where all these pillars can play off each other, right? Do you need to add a product or service that might impact the lifetime value of a customer, right? What's your repeat business look like? How do we get more value to our customer and get paid for that? How do we create better experiences? How do we add product lines? What's that look like so that we can increase that lifetime value? Because it's much easier to sell to a current client than a new client, right? And your cost of acquisition should be much, much less because they're already in your pipeline somewhere. People, we talked through most of this, but a couple other talking points. ABC players, please do that project and go through it, see what works. Are any of your team members at capacity? This is something we should be exploring, right? And you're going to do a calendar review. That's a later slide for you as a manager or an owner, but it's something you got to look at with your team, right? Are they too busy? Do we have too much on their plate where they're cutting corners or becoming inefficient? What skills are missing? If you do a skill assessment of your team, where might there be holes? It's really important to understand that, because if we're going to shoot some goals in the people category, we need to know where we're going. What are you still contributing to the company that needs to be replaced? So if you look at your schedule, what can you disposition and get rid of? Is there a flow of communication both directions? Are you taking feedback and giving feedback, and there's a clear understanding of how that works? And then do you have team members in the wrong seat on the bus, right? We talked about the C players who, if the core traits are good, you might be able to move them and get better production out of them because they're now in a seat that aligns better with their skill set or their vision or their values or what they want to get out of their career. Next, systems and processes. This is all of them, right? Some of the things I think are important in the systems and process world are the client onboarding. I think it's missed a lot. What's that very first client experience once they make the purchase? I think filing and documentation is something that all businesses struggle and reinvent often. So what digital platform are you using? How are you sharing documents? Who can see what documents? What's paper? What's not? That's a really interesting conversation that you should be having in your business so you understand where you're going. COVID probably forced you to go a little more digital than maybe you used to, right? If you're in a business that's been around for a while, paper might have been the way that you do business, but going virtual is going to force that to change. Project management, tasks and email flow, and then a standard operating procedure for problems, right? How do we deal with customer complaints or stuff breaking, right? What's that look like? All of these are the systems and processes that when I say 1 to 10 in the system and process category, they all fall in. So you may be able to create 6 or 7 subcategories for your own business or department on here's processes I want to pay attention to. And I think that every 90 days we should have some dialogue on. Let's have dialogue on our filing, right? Right now it's a 10, but we know as we scale, it may break. Or we add team members. If I'm a solo business, how I do filing is almost irrelevant, right? As long as I know how to find the paper in the stack of papers and get it to the client, who cares, right? But the first time you hire someone, that process breaks, and now our systems and process need to re-lever. Vendors and software. This is one that I mean, it kind of forces me to have the conversation all the time. There's a couple ways to look at this. One of our team members brought up the refinance conversation, right? Why do you refi your mortgage, right? Because there's better rates and the situation has changed, right? Since you purchased your house. You should be having that same conversation with all of your vendor and software relationships, all of them. Every single thing that your business spends money on every month or your department spends money on every month, you should be having conversation on, right? What CRM are you using? Does it work today? Does it do everything you want? Is it missing stuff, right? Email services, are you at capacity? Are you still in Hotmail, right? If so, we probably should have a conversation, right? That probably should be something we're working on. Marketing and web management. Have you outgrown the first company you hired where maybe they had a skill set, but now you need e-commerce experience or better SEO? You have to be able to upgrade that vendor relationship to get the results you're looking for. Banking 100%, right? Certain banks will give you lines of credit, certain won't. Some are great for startups, some are great for established businesses. Some banks specialize in different industries, right? You have to make sure you're reevaluating that, especially when the PPP goes through, right? Or you're looking for federal and state grants. It's nice to have a banker who's aligned with you and provides that business level service. Payment processing, right? Are you just paying fees and you have no clue what you're paying? You should probably reevaluate that, right? Have a conversation so you understand what you're paying. If you're taking a card or you're doing ACHs, understand what the inherent cost of that is and compare it with your current vendor and understand the support level and what you're actually getting. Phone systems, right? When's the last time you actually checked it? Do you hate your phones? And if so, why haven't you upgraded, right? There are great phone service providers in this town who will provide amazing, amazing service. Shout out, one of them's on the call, right? So, make sure you guys are reevaluating that. Internet, where's your provider? Is it working? Did fiber just get pulled, right? If you're in old industrial Sparks, now there's fiber. Maybe fiber makes more sense for your business, create some bandwidth. IT, insurance, real estate, automotive, et cetera, right? All the fees in your business, I want you to pay attention to. And every 90 days, have a hit list where we're saying, do we actually value this relationship? How we become a number? Maybe the company we were working with got bought out and now we're just a number, we're not a name. Maybe I want to move back to being a name. I want customer service to be high touch and I want them to know who I am and understand where I'm going with my business or to my department. That's an experience that we've probably all experienced, right? The buyout experience and then the customer service goes to crap. It's because they're cutting costs and then trying to figure out how to merge. Great, let's find a local company or someone who can provide better service. So vendors and software, super critical to your business and it's directly to the bottom line, right? If there's savings in there that can have value and it's top line driven because maybe you'll gain some capacity or opportunity expansion there as well. Finances, things to look at, cash flow, cash on hand, emergency fund, investments, disaster planning, right? If we look at some of the nonprofit organizations, what does our endowment look like? What's it doing with the market? Are we having to pull from it more because we can't fundraise now? If we're a business, right, maybe we've pulled out of some investments and we're losing the long-term play for the short-term play. You got to understand that and have some goals there. Finances, I think also, if it's your own business, you have to tie in the personal conversation and really ask yourself, am I paying myself first or am I paying myself last? And the answer to that question is probably going to tell you where you're living in your business, right? So important to understand that. Physical, you have to talk about, right? What is the physical space? What are we doing with it? Do you need to expand? When do you need to expand? Yard space. In Reno, this is more critical than ever because depending on what you're looking for, it may take a lot of time and or you may have to build to get the space you want, right? If you need yard space, good luck. If you need warehouse space or mixed use space, good luck. If you need office space, I would wait like 30 to 45 days because as we're seeing with IGT and some other stuff in town, it's opening, right? We're starting to see a big expansion in the office sector. All those things should already play into your plan and you should be keeping an eye out for those opportunities. So next topic, I want to give you, like I said, guys, I'm just throwing a lot of tools and ideas at you. Hopefully a couple of them register and you can take it and use it. The next topic is I want you to buy back some time. If we're going to truly run our business or run our department, we have to find time so that we can go on vacation and disconnect a little bit. So what does busy mean to you? And I think we all, as Americans, right, we have that conversation of busy is good. But it's like, are you busy doing stuff that's progressive in your organization? Are you busy just being busy, right? Are you putting out fires with that water bucket all day where none of the stuff that was on your plan or your to-do list got touched? So take actions to review this. Track your schedule for 1 week. Track it. Put everything you do on your calendar, right? When are you waking up? When are you going to sleep? When are you getting home? When are you leaving? Are you making time for the gym and fitness? What are you doing every day? You got to track it. And then look for opportunities, one, to get stuff off your plate. So that can be personally or professionally. Are there ways to align or get rid of stuff or outsource or hire? On the professional side, that might look like an admin, right? Maybe you find that your emails are becoming unmanageable and you need an office admin who's going to read those emails and take some sort of action with them to give you the task part, but not the communication part. On the personal side, could be house cleaning, right? Maybe you just want to buy back some time on the weekend, so you're going to have someone come in and clean your house to give you that fresh restart. You have to find opportunities to create buffers. This is something I think we struggle with, is if you're always busy, you're going to have a lot of meetings, you're going to be on stuff like this, you have to create buffers in your schedule to catch up. I like to do mine Monday morning and Friday afternoon, starting in the week with some time to catch up, clean up, plan, whatever that may look like, so that I can start and finish the week with an understanding of my workload, right? What's pending, what's not pending, what do I need to pay attention to? Oh crap, something's on fire, let me deal with it. And then you have to make sure that somewhere in that schedule, right, you're making time for family, for health, for you, right? Because you're not going to be able to enjoy vacation if we haven't been making time for our health, right, and our family. So make sure that we're putting time in there and we're actually scheduling time for us. So action items, kind of a recap for you guys. Remember why you started. We talked about that. Align your goals and your business with your why. Make sure that you haven't kind of gotten lost in the weeds. Review your team every 90 days, ABC player conversation. Current state, future state, 1 to 10. Figure out where you're falling today and tomorrow. Make sure you have some KPIs. Make sure those KPIs are told to your team and they understand how they're responsible for them. Buy back some of your time, whatever that looks like. Find a few minutes a week you can buy back. Align your training and mentors with where you're going. That wasn't a slide for that, but it's a tip and something I always have to talk about, right? If you're not elevating your mentorship and your knowledge to align with where you're living today in your business or your department, that's where you can become the weakest link, right? And we want to make sure we're sharp. And next, make sure your circle is elevating with you, right? If you're elevating up a company, if you own a company, if you're expanding, make sure that that circle or sphere of influence around you is pushing you to elevate as well, so that as you're having dialogue in your circle, it's aligning with where you're going, it's aligning with where you are. So with that, that's my all my tools and all my thoughts about how we look at where we started, where we're going, and current state, future state, and are you running your business or is your business running you? So with that, my contact info is up and we can take some questions.
Devin, talking about the A, B, and C employees, how do you feel about annual performance reviews versus something else?
Yeah, I don't know if I have a preference. I've seen all sorts of types of reviews and check-ins work. I think the key is to have a plan, make sure your team understands that communication and frequency, and then execute it, right? So if it is going to be annual, make sure that the team knows what that annual meeting is going to look like, what the conversation is going to be. Make sure that they understand the benchmarks and KPIs we're going to talk about. And then on the other side of the conversation, I think that no matter when your frequency is, make sure that you're allowing the dialogue to come back to you as well, right? What are they not happy with? What are they frustrated with? What are they seeing or hearing? Because they're the ones in the trenches, right? So we need to make sure we're creating opportunity in that review for us to be reviewed by the team.
Devin, I'm interested in your use of the future, looking into the future. I think it's very useful. I want you to think about an organization, a growing one, one that in one way or another sells their services to individuals and to companies. All of the employees do a lot of selling, and they've been hired for their face-to-face interpersonal skills. The supervisors in this company have been trained to supervise, assuming a human face-to-face daily coaching, monitoring, that sort of thing. The company does its planning with project teams and with meetings all together. And most importantly, the customers expect your employees to come out, make presentations, do a lot of face-to-face stuff, and suddenly, I mean, that's your business. And suddenly, you did everything to plan for the future, and very suddenly, COVID hits. And so now the office is empty. People are trying to work at home. They don't know how to contact their customers. I mean, that seems to be insurmountable when it comes to planning for the future, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Long question, but I think it concerns a lot of people.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really valid question, and I think that disaster planning is something that isn't a priority until it's a priority, right? And I think that now is a good reminder for all of us to talk about disaster planning. And I know in my own companies, right, you're head down and you're just going. And even if you build that 3 to 5 year goal, you're shooting that out in a way that is optimistic, right? So how do you plan for stuff going sideways? I think COVID has taught us that we have to find ways to be virtual, right? That's going to be something we're going to have to adapt to moving forward. How do we get better at selling, closing, and client experiences over the phone and Zoom? That's a skill set and training that we now have to hone in on, right? How do we create KPIs? And that's why I always go back to KPIs, because KPIs are universal. And if we have KPIs that are understood, it allows us to benchmark team members no matter where they're performing, right? If they're performing from home or if they're performing in person, as long as we have really clear KPIs and an easy way to pull those reports, we can have great dialogue and move the needle forward. When I had my marketing company, I closed the office. So, the first 3 years of having the company was in person. And the last year was totally virtual because we had more virtual team than physical team. And that experience showed us that, how we file is important, right? Our KPIs are important. Our daily stand-ups are critical. How you get the team together on a call and check in, right? When I was at BBSI, same thing. We went virtual and closed the office, and the team crushed it because every day they would check in, right? And we could align on where are we going today, where were we yesterday, what's a fire, where are we going? So there's a lot of answers to that, but I think it's that willingness and ability to be agile. And I think people get stressed out when there's change, and that's all we've had for the last 12 months is change. So I think as a manager or an owner, you're going to have to babysit that, right? You're going to have to make sure that your employees are adapting to the change and that you understand where that's at. So lots of answers to your question.
Thank you.
Yep. Perfect. So Stefan, how can we apply this information to a company's board of directors? Great question. If you serve on a board, if you run a nonprofit, it's a critical question, right? The first thing I would say is you want an active board, right? Having board members who are bringing nothing to the table are probably not doing anything for you. So first, the ABC players can totally be applied to your board, right? Look at them and figure out, what are they bringing to the table? So ABC players, completely relevant to your board. Second, KPIs, 100% relevant to your board, right? Do they understand what they're being held accountable to, or do they not? Is attendance important? Is contributions important? Are donations gathered important? Are event attendance important? Are volunteering hours important, right? You need to have that clear so that one, when you're recruiting board members, you can recruit board members who understand and align with exactly what you're going to hold them accountable to. And then you can crack the whip and hold them accountable, or get rid of them and bring someone on who's going to. Right seat on the bus is critical. So often boards skew because boards can grow by the sphere of influence that's on the board. So if one of your top performing board members is in the finance space, your board may lean financial because their sphere of influence that they're trying to recruit to the board is also financial. So you have to make sure that as you're recruiting and managing your board, the skill sets align with a holistic approach to the business. So that's critical. And then the 1 to 10, you could have the board do, right? If we look at the organization, whether it's a board for the nonprofit, if you have a board for your business, which I think there's a lot of value in having an active board that you can check in with your business, right? Have them do the rating. Just from the information they have and whatever lens and perspective they're wearing, have them do the 1 to 10 rating on current state and future state. And listen to their answers. Ask why. I've done this exercise with teams and we've gone around the room and the owner and manager never talks. You can't talk in this exercise. This exercise is for the board. It's for your team. Let them give you the number, write the numbers up on the board, find the average, and then ask them, why do you think it's a 2? Why do you think it's a 5? Why do you think it's a 10? Matter of fact, if someone says everything's a 10, that person is totally disconnected, right? Because no organization is all 10s. And if you think your organization's all 10s, you probably should take the rest of the day off and really, really get honest with yourself, right? So lots of ways you can apply the exact same concepts, ideas, and tools to a board environment and be very impactful. Super long-winded answer again.
Any more questions from anyone? See, Devin, you gave us so much to digest that we're still digesting it.
Either that or I put you to sleep. Either way, it's okay. It's all right. Nap time's needed.
Well, thanks everybody for being here, and go out and enjoy the snow, and we'll see you folks next month